So you've read the title, and you've looked at the thumbnail, and you are now an erupting volcano, and you want that lava to burn me to a crisp! Well, get that silly fantasy out of your head, and let's actually discuss why it is I'm not completely for a Sonic Adventure remake right now.
Sauce in my bag, swag.
Hello there, beautiful human. My name is RidersDX, and welcome to my channel, where today we're going to be talking about the possibility of a Sonic Adventure remake. So you've been living under a rock, then you might not know that the Sonic community has been going berserk the past couple of days, because we got an interview with Iizuka in a magazine called Retro Game Magazine, where they talk about Sonic Adventure because it recently got its 20th, 25th anniversary. I really don't know at this point. I can't keep track of all these anniversaries that have been happening the past couple months or so. But they had an interview with Sonic Team's Takashi Iizuka, who was a very prominent figure in Sonic Team, and he was quoted saying this: "It was the first high-speed 3D action game that also featured a scenario highlighted with 6 different stories, the A-Life Chow, 6 unique styles of gameplay. It is a unique game offering even 20 years after its release. At the time, it also wasn't just a solitary software release, it was the title to bring people to the Dreamcast, and we were given the budget to make something to showcase the hardware. However, it was the very first 3D game that we worked on, and looking at it now, I can see the rough edges it has, which really makes me want to remake it again." So in typical fashion, the Sonic community went berserk talking about this, discussing it. We have Sonic tubers everywhere making videos about this, saying that Sonic Adventure Remake was basically confirmed. It isn't, but you know, I can kind of see that it might actually be happening, but that's not the topic of this video. I've low-key been having very strange thoughts about the idea of a Sonic Adventure remake, because don't get me wrong, when I first heard about this idea and saw people talking about it, I was pretty excited, because as a big Sonic fan who grew up a little bit after the Adventure era, the Adventure games were the first Sonic games that I really played. You know, I mentioned before in my Q&A that my first Sonic game was Sonic Heroes, and after that I played Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Adventure DX. So these were the first Sonic games I got introduced to. So there's a big amount of nostalgia that makes me really like the idea of these games being revisited again in a modern fashion. You know, kind of similar to, say, like a Crash Insane Trilogy or a Spyro Reignited Trilogy approach. Because that would look really cool, you know, just seeing all this stuff redone in modern graphics with new features added in, and maybe even having the gameplay improved. It all sounds like stuff that's really exciting and stuff that I would love to see. However, I think there's something that's a little bit dangerous with relying so much on nostalgia, and we're gonna go into exactly what I mean by that right now. But right before we do that, I just want to highlight this fan art that I got the past week from Matt the Lad. It's a pretty cool, goofy looking picture of metal duckos, and I like the duck beak and all that, and yeah, really good job on this, Matt. I'm really happy with how this came out, and thanks for sharing this with me. If you want to check out more of Matt's work, then a link to his Twitter will be in the description box below. But okay, let's get into this topic. So, Sonic Adventure is a game that I have a lot of fond memories of. It was one of my very first experiences with Sonic. You know, right after Sonic Heroes, I think this was basically the next Sonic game I got. And the reason it was the next Sonic game I got is because I think I played the hell out of the PC demo. It was one of the only games that could run on my computer. So when I downloaded that demo, I played that non-stop, because when I was playing Sonic Heroes, I was so hungry for more Sonic content, but I didn't know what other Sonic content I could get, because, well, I wasn't really in the Sonic community yet, so I didn't know where else to go. But I played the hell out of that demo, and I loved playing Emerald Coast again and again and again. And I actually really enjoyed Knuckles' treasure hunting level in particular. I loved gliding everywhere, I loved hunting for the Master Emerald pieces, and yeah, it was a really great experience. And then when I actually got the game itself and played it non-stop, it was just awesome, and I have a lot of really great memories for that game. Flash forward to now, which is I don't know, 10 to 15 years later, I started to see a lot of flaws in the game, you know? No, don't get me wrong, Sonic Adventure will forever be a really good game to me, and it's definitely one of the very first games that introduced me to the Sonic series. But looking at it now, there are a lot of issues with it that I cannot look past as much, and as a result, my love for the game has kind of waned as the years have passed. So the idea of a remake sounds really cool because it's not just a simple remaster. And I know a lot of people in the comment section of my previous video on this were dragging me for misusing remaster. Sorry about that. I kind of thought that the words were interchangeable, but now that I think about it, they actually aren't. So I'm gonna stop using remaster. This is a full-on remake we're talking about. But yes, a Sonic Adventure Remake has the potential to improve on so many of the different things that, looking at the game now, actually plague the game's quality. And it would be really interesting, I'm not gonna lie, to see what Sonic Team would do with the game in this day and age. However, if I'm being completely honest, I don't necessarily think the game needs a remake. Now, there's definitely a lot of flaws of it, and there's definitely a lot of things that don't hold up in terms of aging, and this goes for like any game that came out in that era. I still think that Sonic Adventure experience as a whole was still pretty good, and I don't see how much a remake is really gonna add to the game beyond like enhanced graphics, maybe some improved control, and you know, just like a really great revisit to the whole game. But I don't think that it's gonna add a lot more than people are thinking. I honestly don't think that a remake is gonna improve the game that much more. I mean, the foundation of the game itself still has some flaws that I don't really want to see in a modern Sonic game. For example, the 6 multiple playstyles. This was really interesting for me actually, because I was watching this video from, I think his name was The Geek Critique, and this was a guy who was reviewing Sonic Adventure, and he actually grew up during the Dreamcast era, so he remembered how people were really excited about the prospect of having multiple characters to play as. That was a huge selling point back then. This was so interesting to me because when I grew up with Sonic, it was during Sonic Heroes, and it was around that time that people actually started getting sick of seeing Sonic's friends like appear in all these different games. And you know, by the time it got to 06, there was a really heavy negative stigma associated with other characters in the Sonic universe. People were complaining about Sonic having too many friends appearing in his games and making them all playable. People wanted a pure Sonic experience. So it was very interesting to me to hear that perspective from someone who grew up when the Sonic Adventure was coming out. But there's 6 different playstyles, and although it was a really great quality back then, looking at it now, I don't like the fact that Sonic Adventure had 6 different playstyles. I think Big's gameplay should be completely cut, and more or less, I kind of think Gamma's gameplay should be cut as well. And the reason I say it is because, you know, these gameplay styles were not that bad in terms of like technicalities. Like, they still played well enough and they were fun in some ways, but these are not gameplay styles that I'm looking for when I'm playing a Sonic game. This is a bit of a controversial opinion, but I don't think Sonic games should have multiple playstyles. When I say multiple playstyles, I mean like styles are completely different from the core gameplay. So, you know, it's kind of like Sonic Adventure 2, for example, that has like the mech shooting levels or the treasure hunting levels, or in Sonic Unleashed that also have the Werehog levels. Those kind of playstyles, I don't think they have a place in a Sonic game. I think when you have a Sonic game, the main focus should be on that core 3D Sonic platforming gameplay, because that gameplay enough is difficult enough as it is to design. You should be investing all your resources in making sure that gameplay is refined and well developed and is innovative as you progress through the entire campaign. If you have all these other different gameplay styles being developed simultaneously, then that takes away from the development time for the main 3D Sonic gameplay, and as a result, we're not going to get the most optimal levels designed for the gameplay. We're not going to get the most optimal controls, the most, you know, just everything that goes into making sure that this gameplay style, which is the main selling point of the game, goes well. I can appreciate the fact that back then, multiple characters were praised and were very, very appealing to the gamer, but I think times have changed and people are starting to realize more that a game is overall a lot better if you focus the game on one gameplay style purely. Not to say that I wouldn't want to see these gameplay styles come back. I would love to have a solo Knuckles game, for example, that took advantage of his treasure hunting gameplay and really expanded upon that. That's actually a video I want to make at some point, just kind of thinking about what a Knuckles solo game would be like, but that's a whole nother topic for another video. But anyway, so this is kind of like one of the big reasons why I don't really like the idea of a Sonic Adventure Remake, because if you have the Sonic Adventure Remake, then you need to keep these core characteristics of the game intact, because if you start like taking away like Big's gameplay, for example, or like changing up like Amy's gameplay drastically, this is no longer a Sonic Adventure. It's gonna be something completely different. And here's my really big driving point. if you're gonna change a game enough that it's gonna feel completely different, why not just make a brand new game? Here's what I think is the most important thing that Sega needs to do right now to put Sonic back on track. They need to develop not a game that's gonna thrive off of nostalgia, that's gonna succeed just because people have fond memories of the older game. They really need to dive in and really develop a mainstream brand new Sonic game that's gonna bring in new fans, and it's also going to make older fans come back and be like, oh, Sonic is actually good, you know, he's actually coming out with great games that are building upon the franchise rather than just trying to feed off of nostalgia. Because I think we're starting to get into a bit of a dangerous territory where Sega is relying a little bit too much on nostalgia. Nostalgia is a really high selling point right now. Like, Sonic is not the only franchise that's benefiting off of it. You know, you also have Crash Bandicoot, you also have Spyro, who recently came out with remakes as well. And of course, Nintendo franchises always call back to their older games as well. But Sonic has a really damaged reputation, and you know what? I don't need to tell you that. Every Sonic fan knows that Sonic's reputation is basically the pits right now. I really don't think a Sonic Adventure remake is what we need to get this franchise back on track. What we need is a brand new mainstream Sonic game that does not rely on nostalgia, that's going to be critically praised and is going to sell millions of copies and get Sonic's name back on the map. That's what Sega really needs to do. And I feel like Sonic Colors, Sonic Generations, Sonic Unleashed, you know, those 3 Boost Trilogy games, they were starting to get to that point. They were starting to build Sonic's reputation up again. But then you had Sonic Forces come out, and that basically undid almost everything that those games did. And you know, this is the only real way that Sonic can really get back and be a respected franchise again, because it's all dependent on the game quality, and it's all dependent on the word of mouth saying that, hey, Sonic is actually good again. Sonic has a really great game, and it's really great, and it really shows us that Sonic is getting back on track. And the thing of a Sonic Adventure remake is that, in my personal opinion, while that game was great, it has a lot of foundations to it that I don't like now as a modern fan. And I don't really want to see some of those things come back, such as the multiple playstyles. So I think just remaking the game and having to stick to all those different ideas is not something I necessarily want to happen. It is not necessarily the thing that I want Sega to invest their resources in. I mean, I think I would be okay with it if Sega like maybe outsourced that remake to a different company, because then you could have Sonic Team focus specifically on the brand new Sonic title, because I think that's where the meat of their energy needs to go. The meat of the development of Sonic games needs to go into that future mainstream title that Sega needs to be a success to put Sonic back on the map. If they outsource the Sonic Adventure remake to a different company that was known for doing good games, then I don't really have a problem with the remake. My fear is that they're gonna put this on Sonic Team as well, especially because Iizuka seems to be really for the remake. So Iizuka might want to have a really huge part in it. I'm not saying that Sonic Team needs to be the developer of the game for Iizuka to take charge of it, but logically, if Iizuka wants to be heavily a part of the remake, then Sonic Team is the obvious choice to develop the game. But I really want Sonic Team to focus on the next mainstream title and to make it something that's gonna blow everyone away. And if they have this remake and they're investing their energy in this remake, then that title's not gonna come, at least not for a while. So I know I sounded like a rambling mess, and I don't know if I made any sense, but that's basically why I don't really care for a Sonic Adventure remake. First of all, the game was pretty good as it is. Like, I know I said that it has some flaws to it, but I still enjoyed the game very much, and I have a lot of fond childlike memories with it. But since I liked the game enough as a kid, I don't really think a remake is gonna bring that much more to it. I mean, I'm gonna get a huge wave of nostalgia playing the game, definitely, but I just don't think that this is what the franchise needs right now. I think the franchise needs a brand new Sonic game that's gonna put it back on the map. And if Sega's gonna have Sonic Team go on this project, then they're not investing their full resources into that brand new game, and that's what concerns me, because you know, when you have like team changes and shakeups in the middle of a game development, we've seen that definitely affect the game's quality in the past. Like Sonic 06 is a perfect example of this. Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric is another perfect example of this. I want Sonic Team to focus on that next mainline Sonic game. So the only way that I feel like I'm gonna fully support a remake is if Sega outsources it to a different company. because we need that mainstream Sonic game that's going to be coming next to be a success. If it continues this downward spiral that Sonic Forces has started, then it's going to be very, very difficult for the franchise to pick up, especially if the movie ends up being bad, because that's just going to be another huge scar in the franchise. So they need to make sure that next mainline Sonic game is good. And the only way to do that is to make sure that they give the team the proper time and development and resources to develop that game. And if they're being torn between that and a Sonic Adventure Remake, then I don't think that's going to be very good news for the brand new Sonic game, unless Sega gives the team more time to make it. But you know, knowing Sega, they're still going to want that next mainstream Sonic game to come out shortly after the remake or before. That's basically what I think. But let me know in the comment section what you're thinking. Do you all support a Sonic Adventure Remake, or do you not support it? Let me know why in the comment section below, and let's have a really good discussion about this. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to my channel if you like videos like these, want to see more in the future, follow me on Twitter at RidersDX, or join my Discord server, the Spongy Garden. And yeah, that is everything. I'm really interested in seeing what people think about what I've said here, because I'm definitely gonna expect some raging comments, but I've been thinking about this for a while and I can't just like keep it inside me anymore. This is a channel that drives off of discussion, that drives off of sharing opinions, and I'm gonna share mine no matter how unpopular it is. But yes, that is everything. This is Riders, and I'm riding out.